The next EcomCrew webinar is quickly approaching on May 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Just go to ecomcrew.com/webinar to register today. This month, we're going to be going over our 2018 Amazon launch strategy. As always, with all of our webinars, this will be 100% free for you to attend. Just go to ecomcrew.com/webinar to register today. We look forward to seeing you there. This is Mike, and welcome to episode number 135 of the EcomCrew podcast. Today we're back with part 2 with Kevin Sanderson, talking about delegation in his e-commerce business. You can go to ecomcrew.com/underthehood to sign up for your very own episode of the EcomCrew podcast and be on the Under the Hood segment. This is something that I really look forward to doing these days. It's been really awesome. The people that we've interviewed so far have been really interesting, and it's been a very diverse range of topics, and I look forward to having you on a future episode as well. And without further ado, on the other side of this break, we're going to get into part 2 with Kevin Sanderson.
Welcome to the EcomCrew podcast, hosted by Mike Jackness and Dave Bryant, who together run e-commerce businesses that generate 8 figures annually. Mike and Dave take pride in running a podcast that isn't just fluff, talking about specific products, problems, and real-world solutions. In the words of one of our favorite reviews, this podcast is like a playbook for e-commerce. You can take any episode and spend the next month trying to implement it. So without further ado, here's the EcomCrew.
All right, so let's move on to phase 2 of this tangled web we weave.
All right, good deal.
And talk about like the how you're going to like execute on that. You got the person in the chair. You took my advice. You hire. It took you, let's say, 3 to 6 months to find them. Now, how do you actually get these tasks offloaded? And the way that I did it, and what I would recommend, is a similar thing to you here. Over the next 3 months, while you're looking for this person and you're doing these tasks, your new best friend will become Camtasia. Which is a program that allows you to do screen share or screen recordings. So you can record your screen and your voice at the same time. It's what we use to do all of our EcomCrew training, for instance, all the courses we release. We use Camtasia for that, and we use Camtasia also for all of our training videos for our VAs. We don't do that as much anymore because we have a larger team now and don't need that as much anymore. But when it was just Mia and Heidi, this is all I ever did was record my screen to give them daily tasks. I would do that during my day because I'm very adamant about having them work Filipino hours. So I do that during my day. There's a share menu under in Camtasia. I would share it right out to Google Drive. I have a Google Drive that was like for that particular VA, and they would just check that each day and. And if there was a video in there, they would know to look at it and work on that task. So when you're launching new SKUs or optimizing SKUs or optimizing your PPC or doing your bookkeeping, et cetera, you're already doing the task. Just kind of walk through it and record it as you're doing it. It doesn't have to be like uber professional. The only person that's going to see it is this other VA. So and then they can just hit play on that and watch you go through that a couple of times. And these are ultra smart, college educated, free thinking people. These guys over there do an absolutely incredible job. I mean, they are really like the nucleus of our company now. It's not just, I would almost call them the main office at this point. It's kind of getting to that point. So don't underestimate the types of tasks they can be doing. In fact, they proactively surprise us all the time with the things that they can do and continue to do. Launching new SKUs is totally in their warehouse, and optimizing SKUs is totally within their wheelhouse of things to be doing. The thing that you'll probably want to continue to have a handle on is the actual copy. So you might want to write the title, the description, the bullet points for the listing. Because you will probably know the products better than they will, at least to start with. And until you can hire a copywriter specifically, I think that's probably still in your best interest to do. But the rest of it, so you could just put that in a notepad file or something, and then they actually do the listing and could do the keyword research for you and add the photos and do Splitly for you and optimize your PPC and all these things. I mean, these are all things that our staff does already. Bookkeeping, certainly they could be doing the bookkeeping, the low level stuff that takes all the time, grabbing stats or figures from all over the place and putting them into a spreadsheet. We have a Gecko board dashboard. One of our VAs every day, the first thing she does when she comes in, does this for us. So we have tabs on our accounting on a daily basis, tabs on inventory. This is something else that they could be doing for you. There's almost answering customer emails. So I would say 6 out of the 8 things that are on this list are things that you could train them to do relatively easily over the next few months, to where you're taking a management role in this process instead of the person that's in the weeds actually doing it. And it takes some time to gain the confidence in having someone else do it. So what I recommend doing, and the way that I gain confidence, is, just give them one thing at a time, and, until you're confident with that one thing, and then give them another thing. And eventually you'll start to gain confidence in that they can do more and more. That's certainly how it played out for me. But these are 100% things that they can do over there in a general VA role. The thing that I would caution you against is just to be sure that, think about, humans are humans, whether they're in North America or in Asia. You wouldn't hire a person in the United States or put a job application out that's, someone that can basically do everything. So you want to keep tasks that are, the same type of job description you would have in the U.S. But most of these things, I would say 6 out of 8 of these things fall in that category. Mm-hmm. But I would be careful not to give them things like graphic design tasks. They shouldn't be creating your images, because that's a different side of the brain that would do that, and a different person that would be an expert in making the graphics themselves, or the copywriting. If you eventually get to the point where you want the VA or someone over in the Philippines doing your copywriting, that's probably a different person. But all these administrative type tasks, which is launching new SKUs, optimizing PPC, bookkeeping, even though bookkeeping, technically accounting is a separate type of function, the bookkeeping that you're going to be asking them to do is administrative. It's just pulling numbers from one place and putting them into a central point so you can look at them or help get your accounting done. So that's something that they could do. Keeping tabs on your inventory, very administrative type function, very necessary function. In fact, as of recording this podcast, we just had a new hire start today. His full-time job is doing nothing but that. So very important task, but easily could be done by one of the VAs in the Philippines. Answering customer emails, absolute slam dunk thing for them to be doing. So what you have left on this list is finding new products. That's probably not their forte, not something that's a crucial business decision that we still do here in California, and driving sales off of Amazon until you figure out like what that is and how that's going to look like. You probably want to figure that out yourself, but that's a much better use of your 15 to 25 hours a week than being in the weeds on PPC and making sure keywords are optimized.
Good points. I like it.
Yeah, so those are my general overall thoughts. Do you have any other questions in regard to this, and how else could I help make this an easier transition and sell for you to start moving along in this direction?
Well, the hiring part. So I do have a decent amount of experience hiring in my full-time roles, and in every job I've ever had, I've noticed there's just little things I had to start looking for because I realized I was making mistakes early on in hiring, mm-hmm. like questions I should have asked or red flags that should have come up. For this type of role, what would you say are those red flags or those, gosh, I wish I had only known this when I first started hiring VAs?
Yep. Let me go through a few things that we do in this regard. First of all, because there's just so much interference, it's even worse in the Philippines than it is in the U.S., and it's a big problem in the U.S., but you'll post mm-hmm. a resume and get just basically what I call application spam. Just people see the resume and they just apply. And like they're actually looking for a fry cooker job at McDonald's, but they're applying for your like logistics position. It's, so what we do there is we actually set up a special email address now, at our company, for people to email their application to with instructions specifically on what they need to do to apply, which is super simple. It's like, this is the subject line and attach your resume and cover letter in PDF format when you apply. And that weeds out like 96% of the crap. So like at least the stuff that ends up in your inbox are people that read the full job description, because that's the last thing we have at the bottom of the job description, is to do that. So now your filtering process is a lot better because you're not frustrated by having to go through all the other BS, because that's actually a pretty frustrating part of the whole process. So you now know that you have at least semi-qualified people that can at least follow basic directions. Probably a pretty crucial attribute for someone applying for this job, to be able to do that, right? So you're at least at that level. And then when I go through, I try to find the ones that at that point make the most sense to me, and I want to get them through some sort of a test that we have now. We have a test. We bring them in or give them online actually now, some basic questions, including some mock support questions, especially since you're going to be having them answer customer support stuff. This weeds out another 50% of those people, or 70% of those people. Quite frankly, a lot of the ones that'll come back, the English is not perfect, or it's written in some awkward way that because people in different parts of the world talk differently, and quite frankly, you're looking for American English, USA English. It's actually it's one of these things you don't think about much, but the UK speaks differently than the United States, and parts of Asia speak differently than the United States when it comes to English. And the reality is, I don't agree with this. I think it's actually kind of effed up in a lot of ways, but Americans look down on non-perfect American English and don't think about the fact that it's a globalized world, and that this might be their second or third language, and that we're really stupid, and you're being critical of someone that's actually way smarter than you, but it's a bad American culture trait, in my opinion. And honestly, I used to be that exact way until I started traveling the world and realized that I was the one that was dumb, not them. Because everyone else in the world speaks 2 or 3 languages, and it's kind of funny, but unfortunately, at some point you have to also cater to your customer and be a business person, right? So you can fight the political or moral thing in your own way, in some other way, but your business is your business. So this helps filter that out, which I think is really important. And then if they pass through all those hoops, I get again, this is happening in the Philippines now. So I kind of going back and forth to what we're really doing now to what I used to do before we got to that point, which is to do a Skype interview. That way you get some FaceTime with them and just see their mannerisms. I ask them as many questions as I possibly can. One of my favorite, not softball, but the curveball questions I always throw out is, give me 10 uses for a pencil other than writing. It's a really stupid but interesting way to get people uncomfortable and see what happens when they don't know the answer right off the top of their head. And I asked them to give me 10 reasons, again, not to use a pen, or that you can use a pencil for other than writing, and tell them there is no right answer and there is no time limit. What I'm looking for there is just how can they think quickly on their feet, because this is going to be a position where you're not going to be there to manage them in person. And do they give up? I will never hire someone that won't at least figure out a way to get to 10. I don't care if it takes them an hour, but I want them to answer all 10 answers. And because there's a million different ways you can use a pencil. And again, there's no wrong answer. You can, say anything from stabbing somebody to using it to, twirl your hair. I've heard all the different answers, but I want 10 answers. And ask some other questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Ask some career questions. This is something I think is a big mistake. People don't ask these types of things because they don't think of them as career people because they're on the other side of the planet. But they're just as career minded as any of us are. And, make sure that they want to be with you for a long time. There's an unfortunate culture of job flipping in the Philippines just because people are treated unfairly. Usually it's because they had some type of life event, they got sick, a parent got sick, whatever. And just like when people were building the Hoover Dam, if someone would fall to their death, there's another one waiting, kind of thing. It's kind of a sad situation. So you try to look for the people that are actually thinking longer term. That's another thing that we look for. And hopefully you'll get someone that answers. I hope to be a manager, or I'm looking to excel long term. But through all of that process, and it's definitely arduous. It's a lot of work, but eventually, hopefully, you come out the other end finding your perfect candidate.
Good. No, I like the mock support questions. it is a test, because at the end of the day, we want to make sure that people can understand what they're saying, especially in written English. I'm sometimes amazed how even Americans have trouble with written American English.
Yeah.
And then as far as I think I like the some of your interview questions about 10 uses for a pencil. I've never heard that one, but that's a good kind of just see how they react type question. Now, as far as experience goes, like, what do you look for with experience, or do you worry too much about experience and more for moldability?
Yeah, mostly more for moldability. I mean, I do look for people that have at least a couple years experience. So we don't want this to be their first job. But their second job is fine, or their third job or something along those lines. Almost all of the people in our office are actually really young. In fact, I think everyone there might be under 30, I'd have to actually think, but probably under 35. I don't think anyone there is actually really under 35. So, it just happens to be that's kind of where we're at. It certainly is not what we're targeting necessarily, but maybe it's just the job pool or actually, I hadn't really even thought about it till now. That's kind of an interesting. I don't know why that's kind of worked out that way. But yeah, I don't know if it's just the types of people that are applying or whatever. But that's just kind of what we've ended up with. So yeah, I mean, most of them don't. I mean, no one has e-commerce experience, or I think maybe one or two have come through the door with that specific thing. I'm not even sure we ended up even hiring those people necessarily. But yeah, I mean, you want people that are smart, quick on their feet. They're going to be learning this stuff one way or the other. No one's going to come in with the knowledge of being able to do all the things in your business the way that you want. So we look for moldability is definitely the thing. And that's why I asked a stupid question like, give me 10 uses for a pencil. I want someone who's smart. That's all I care about. Like someone that's quick on their feet, that can figure stuff out on their own, that doesn't need me to hold their hand through every part of it. Because if you get that type of person, which I actually had, my very first VA was like that. And I found that it was more frustrating giving them something to do than just doing it myself. When I had to like basically show them every little thing, like I want our employees, whether they're in this office in the United States or in the Philippines, to be free thinkers and have autonomy over their job and, hopefully bring us ideas and not the other way around. And that is how they operate there. And that's how this office here operates. And that's what we want. And that's what I'm looking for in the interview process. That's what I was looking for in the interview process for Mia. And that's what she knows that she's looking for when she's interviewing now, because she does all the hiring. I mean, she's hired every single employee for us now, all 12 of them in the Philippines at this point, following the same method. Oh,
wow. Do you do like a final interview with whoever the top candidate is, or she just makes all the decisions?
We do. Yeah, we have a final. It's usually about a 30-minute final interview after they pass through all the hoops, and I think we probably hire 70% of the people she brings us at that stage.
Wow, so she must be doing pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, she's awesome. She's definitely done a great job for us.
Okay, good deal. I think that's the major things that I was really hoping to get out of it.
Awesome.
Yeah, and my last question I'd written down here is when should I hire my first full-time employee? But you've answered that. But let me phrase it to you this way. Was it when did you hire your first full-time employee?
So, I mean, are we talking about in e-commerce or going way back to the very beginning?
Let's say in e-commerce. Was it around where I'm at or earlier or
later? I actually hired someone basically as soon as we got started.
Okay.
I knew that this was something that I wanted to be in. I would say, I was sub $250,000 in revenue. Mm-hmm. But I was able to cheat because I had been through this before, and I've realized now that the number one thing I think that entrepreneurs make as a mistake is waiting too long to hire. Like it's pervasive. Like everyone ends up in this situation, and in this company now we're trying to hire ahead of the curve. Like we're trying to hire and build a team for where we want to be next year, because it takes 6 months to get an employee up to speed, no matter how good they are. We have a bunch of superstars on our team, but I mean, you can only learn so much so quickly, and you can only hand the reins over to things and have the comfort level so fast. So yeah, I mean, our goal is to next year to be at 15 million, and we're trying to build a $15 million team, not the team that at 5 million where we were, and we're constantly struggling and always like running around with our hair on fire. I mean, that's not a great feeling either, where you're just constantly up against everything at all times. So we're trying to build for the future. And, I think that's one of the things that I've really learned over the course of the last 15 years of entrepreneurship. And at some point I kind of just got that, in our last company, especially. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's any magic number. Everyone's got to do what makes them comfortable. And, it's just certainly advice from my point of view, but I think, as you said, you already know that you're the bottleneck. So it's just, how do you fix that? I mean, that was kind of what you already know the answer, right? That you're at that point. And, typically what ends up happening is that realistically you should have hired someone much sooner, because if you are at that point, you've probably been there's probably, it's like the stages of grief. There's probably like a certain period of time where you like didn't think that this was a problem, and it actually was. And then it finally was like, okay, this really is a problem. And by that point, it probably had been a problem for a long time.
Right. No, that's a very fair point. I, as I start doing some numbers in my head of what I've been paying for, part-time VAs the last month or so, I would say even if I end up paying a little bit more than $600 a month, I probably would still end up being ahead, and I would have a more I guess to say a little bit more investment. The ones I have now are great, but having someone who's more invested full time in the company, I could definitely see the benefit of that.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad you brought that up.
It's really important. And the training that you're doing right now with those employees is like an anti-investment of your time, because you're going to have to go back and do all the stuff that you're training someone to do right now again when you hire a full-time employee. And if you had the full-time person now, you wouldn't have that issue. In the first place, I would start to look, if you're looking to hire someone full-time, if you just mentioned you're happy with the people you have now, if you're really happy with them and think that they're superstars and they could potentially be your Mia, offer one of them the position, and see if they're willing to come work for you full time versus the other person. I mean, the reality is that, this is the problem with having a part-time person. The other guy might do that someday. This is why you need to get your own full-time person, where they're not having, you're not at risk at some point of them doing that to you. You want to do that to the other guy, in this situation, and hire them full-time if you're really happy with them. If you're not, then it's time to move on and just have a difficult conversation with them.
Sure. No, that's a good point too. Yeah. So I really have enjoyed this conversation. I mean, awesome. I got a lot out of it. Good.
Well, hopefully everyone else listening did as well, and definitely appreciate you coming on. I always ask everyone to please, give me like a 6-month or 12-month follow-up when you get to that point. Shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you, and hopefully I'll see you at Seller Summit.
Good deal. I look forward to seeing you there.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Kevin.
Thanks, Mike.
Appreciate it. That's a wrap. I want to thank Kevin again for coming on the EcomCrew podcast. Hopefully we're able to give him some good ideas that he can implement in his own e-commerce business. And again, just as a reminder, you can go to ecomcrew.com/underthehood to be on your very own episode of the EcomCrew podcast. We would love to have you on. And another reminder, you can go to ecomcrew.com/135 to get to the show notes for this episode. Let us know what you think. If you have any thoughts about how this can help you in your own e-commerce business, if you have any thoughts about Kevin's business, we'd love to hear from you. So 2 reminders again with the links, ecomcrew.com/135 for the show notes for the episode, and ecomcrew.com/underthehood. Thanks for supporting the EcomCrew podcast. And until the next one, happy selling, and we'll talk to you then.
Thanks for listening to the EcomCrew podcast. Follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/EcomCrew for weekly live recordings of the EcomCrew podcast every Monday. And please do us a favor and leave an honest review on iTunes. It would really help us out. Again, thanks for listening. And until next week, happy selling.